days to keep the grid stable. There's also talk of an agricultural disaster in Texas as its citrus crop could amount to basically, we could be seeing a lot of significant losses. The impact of the cold weather and storms won't be realized right for at least a few weeks. Growers are already warning that crop losses could be substantial. Now, since Texas is the nation's third largest citrus producing state behind California and Florida, a loss in crop could result in skyrocketing prices. And that comes at a time when many Americans are dealing with soaring food inflation. At the same time, others can barely afford to pay rent and feed their families. But as we can see, the worst is likely over as warmer temperatures could be seen by the weekend. We're looking at temperatures that may go up to about 60, upper 60s. But for weeks, we're going to be seeing Texas dealing with a multitude of problems related to the power grid collapse. Boiling water, blackouts are going to be a fact of life for Texas. And it's going to be going on because of millions of households across Texas are still without power. They're going to have to try and find ways to slowly bring the grid back online. So the situation is dire in some parts of the state. As I said, many of them look like third world conditions. Many people are lining up for water and food. Some don't even have enough fuel to keep their generators running. Authorities, meanwhile, are urging people to conserve energy by limiting their consumption of power. ERCOT had said that the blackouts will be rolling, lasting for about 45 minutes per area. That might, you may say, well, that's not a lot, Clyde, but it does indicate a presence of a problem. It may also indicate that in an emergency, this can happen anywhere at any time. Let this be a warning to everyone in the United States. The grid is vulnerable, and with the transition of electrify everything, a major storm, a cyber attack, or even an EMP can throw us into a dangerous situation.
We're down to the last
Texas was not prepared for this. Why? Because winter storms of this magnitude are not the norm for them. A blackout of massive proportions almost hit Europe earlier this year. The fact that the catastrophe was avoided was lucky, but the event highlighted two problems: over-reliance on intermittent solar and wind power and a possibly excessive interconnectedness of the continent's national grids. Again, that's what happened in Texas, too. Solar, wind, and power, the turbines were froze up. And, if you look at Europe, its solar power production has dropped to zero. No country except Slovenia is producing solar power right now, and Slovenia's production is meager. It's only about 1% of its total generation. Wind power is going strong in most of Europe, but solar power, not working. In Sweden, even wind power production is low because wind activity is low. So Sweden has these ambitions to become all renewable by 2040, but they're seeing a jump in electricity prices, and they're the highest they've been since 2011, and they're urging people to conserve energy by reducing their consumption because of solar power. So what does this tell you about solar power and what does it tell you about wind power? It's worthless. In an emergency, we're screwed. This is telling us in no uncertain terms that this lack of diversification, the biggest takeaway from the largest controlled blackout in American history is that trust in private corporations and government to manage your well-being is not going to be in the picture. You got to think for yourself. You got to do for yourself. Parts of Texas are effectively a third world country this week. Maybe being a prepper and storing a few cans of beans or a couple of coins of silver or a few bitcoins. Maybe a gun, ammunition, a generator, clean water. We've got water purifiers and food to prepare with. But like I say, I give you the warning, and when it goes down, it goes down. And people say, you were right. Yeah, but what's the toll on being right? It's not always fun being right when you're dealing with life and death. But just remember one thing. This is just a temporary crisis in Texas, and it's only going to last maybe a few more days, well, maybe longer. I don't know. It could be longer. So what would happen, though? Think long and hard about this. What would happen if a severe, long-term national emergency disrupted the food chain? What would happen if a severe, long-term emergency, national emergency, disrupted the water coming to you, the power systems? What if they went down for months on end? All it took to cause a short-term collapse scenario in the state of Texas was cold weather. And as Bill Gates told us on 60 Minutes, there are much, much worse things, black swan events, that can happen to our nation It's become clear that we're not ready. So get prepared while you still can, because time is running out.